Folks, this is Denny Carter from NBC Sports Edge. I'm here at the Super Bowl in Arizona with my colleague Lawrence Jackson. And today, we were lucky enough to stumble across two players, one from the Chiefs, one from the Eagles. We got to talk to them, interview them about the keys to winning Super Bowl 57.
First off, man, on offense, we must protect Patrick Mahomes, man. We know that Eagles rush defense is coming, and the two people that know that is Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson. Our receivers a little banged up too now, so somebody gonna have to step up on that end.
It's like the Bucs did in the Super Bowl against Mahomes. All you have to do really is make Patrick Mahomes play badly. It's that simple. You also have to cover Travis Kelce, which, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't do. And, of course, the Bengals really didn't do. So that's our plan. We're going to cover Travis Kelce. It is a groundbreaking defensive maneuver that I think will catch on after we do it.
All right, we're back on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Yeah. We welcome in Denny Carter, Lawrence Jackson from Roto World. Phenomenal production values on that video, guys.
I like really the fact that, like, here's what I like. I like the fact that you guys didn't even try to because the mannequins had arms, right? But you guys, as opposed to just like standing up against it like this, like you literally put your arms, you're hugging them.
We were holding on for dear life.
Right? No, I understand. So it's like they have these four-armed football players.
And it's prom season. It's almost prom season too, so we want to hit the prom pose.
It looked. I mean, look at that. I mean, like, what's going on? Like, Lawrence is like, it's like literally no production value whatsoever.
Yeah. Why is a Kansas City Chief player wearing an Atlanta Braves hat?
Like, Lawrence couldn't
look, maybe
you couldn't even bother to take off your hat.
Always the hat, baby, always that. Maybe that Chiefs player was from Atlanta.
Look, maybe. And there's Denny.
I don't know why it's so sensual.
Denny's getting to second base with this guy.
He like his too much. Huh?
Listen, I was really trying not to do it, but the footholds in the back are so small. You get one pinky toe on them, and you're just struggling.
It's a workout.
Do you think the footholds were so small as maybe that's a hint that because they didn't want your asses on those things?
Hey, look, sometimes you got to do what you got to do for the content, baby.
Oh, boy. All right.
This is true. So we're going four wide. Denny Carter, Lawrence Jackson, me and Jay Croucher here on the Happy Hour, and we want to. What do we want to do? We BetMGM. We've got some BetMGM props.
We're doing a little segment. I know you like your constructs, Matthew. We're going to talk what's more likely. Fresh off of Isaiah Likely's teammate, Mark Andrews being on the show.
The definitive Mark Andrews interview, by the way.
Followed by the definitive Denny Carter and Lawrence Jackson interview. Definitive all around. So let's start with you, Lawrence. So what's more likely, Chiefs win in a blowout or the Eagles win in a blowout? Now on BetMGM, you can bet alternate spreads. So you can bet the Chiefs minus 10.5, which is plus 400, or you can bet the Eagles minus 10.5, which is plus 300. Which of those do you like, Lawrence?
Yeah. So look, even though, as y'all know, I like the Eagles to win.
Yeah, you've staked yourself.
But if we're talking about a blowout, I've seen the Chiefs blow out a team with a good defense this year, and that's the 49ers. So I would lean towards the Chiefs there.
All right. What do you got, Denny?
I'm going the opposite way. I think that if the Death Star Eagles can storm in here and get out to a big lead, I don't think there's any way that the Chiefs can. With that pass-heavy offense, I don't think that they can keep pace with Jalen Hurts if that running game is going. If he's able to hit those downfield receivers, I think the Eagles are more likely to blow them out.
Okay. Patrick Mahomes can't keep up with Jalen Hurts. Questionable start from Denny Carter. But
very questionable start. By the way, we may have to take back this NBC Sports Edge quarter zip that you got. I was surprised you didn't wear the sweater. I thought you for sure would make an appearance on the show wearing the cardigan.
Is the issue. I didn't.
He wanted to wear a blazer. But he didn't want y'all talking about it. He put it back in the closet today. He was ready to throw on the blazer.
Casual as possible.
There wasn't even. Smart. I was hoping for the blazer at dinner last night. No, we all went out last night, got some Cadillac margaritas. Me and Denny talked about the X-Files for about 3 hours. It was great.
I could talk more if you want to. If we want to do a podcast just on the X-Files, that's right.
That's right. We had a very fun team bonding dinner last night, the four of us and others here at NBC. I'm going to say the Chiefs in terms of who's more likely to blow out. That's a team that can score quickly, and so I can't see the Eagles blowing out. I'm sorry, I can't see the Eagles blowing out the Chiefs because even if they're up big, I just think that they'll be very pass heavy and trying to come back, and I can see the Chiefs backdoor covering. You know what I mean? Like in a scenario that way.
I think the other thing with this as well is that Jalen Hurts. There is a huge discrepancy between Jalen Hurts and how he plays with a lead versus playing from behind. And we talked about this yesterday, but there is an element where Hurts, so much of his success has been playing with the lead, team stacking the box because the Eagles are so good running the ball, and then getting A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith one-on-one. And Hurts has been so good at those deep balls to those guys one-on-one that I think that if it is a close game or if the Chiefs are playing with a lead, then there could be a crescendo effect where it gets a lot more difficult for Hurts. But let's talk about Super Bowl MVP, which is always one of the more fun bets around the Super Bowl. Lawrence, do you think it's more likely that an Eagles defensive player wins MVP or that a non-Mahomes Chief wins MVP?
Definitely an Eagles defensive player. Like if the Chiefs are winning this game, they would have to force themselves not to give the MVP to Patrick Mahomes. We saw it a couple of years ago when Damian Williams should have been Super Bowl MVP, right? So
Mahomes was terrible in that game. I mean, terrible, strong words, but like he made terrible.
What was your other one?
He wasn't terrible.
You said Matthew Stafford was terrible in last year's Super Bowl. Every quarterback who's ever won a Super Bowl has been terrible.
Mahomes
Nick
wasn't
Foles, terrible.
Mahomes played poorly in that game based on his previous talent level.
Yes.
He underperformed, and Lawrence is right. Damian Williams should have been the tight end. It should have been the MVP in that game.
So they going to give it. If the Chiefs win it, he could be 19 for 32 for 122 yards. Give it to him. But the Eagles, on the other hand, if they play games like how they've been playing in the playoffs, running the ball, pass rush, getting to the quarterback. Right. I mean, we are Hassan Reddick right there. Yeah. Could be a DB somewhere here or there, so I'll go with the Eagles defender.
Yeah. I'm going that way too because there's no universe in which the Chiefs succeed offensively. If Kelsey has a big game, 10 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, or Tony has a big game, or MVS or whatever, Mahomes also has a big game. So none of those guys are going to win MVP over Mahomes, even Kelsey. So if the Chiefs win, they're going to put up in that extremely pass-heavy offense. They're going to put up a lot of yards, probably a lot of touchdowns. That's Mahomes all the way. I'd have to go with an Eagles defender.
And you can certainly see a scenario in which, to just build on that, because I agree, Denny, that if the Eagles win, there's a scenario in which the Eagles win and that the defense just completely shuts down Mahomes and the offense, but that Hurts doesn't do a massive, that the offense isn't that huge.
Yeah. They're run heavy.
They're controlling the ball.
They're
controlling the ball. It's multiple guys, like with Sanders, Gainwell, and Boston Scott, and so it's just that there's not one dominant offensive player, but whether Reddick has a couple of sacks and maybe a strip sack fumble that he returns for a touchdown, or Darius Slade does a pick six or something like that, like you could see that scenario.
I think Reddick is probably the one because Reddick has 4 games this season where he has multiple sacks and a forced fumble in the same game, and he would have won MVP of the NFC title game, I think, with what he did and just how, and also with Hurts, with his injury concerns, maybe he's not gobbling up as much of the MVP equity. Look, Travis Kelce's been a really popular bet for Super Bowl MVP. I think the fact that there's the brother narrative there that builds on that, but I think at 11-1, I think there's no value there because what you have to remember is that if he goes for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, Patrick Mahomes gets those stats as well. And so his production is inextricably tied to Mahomes.
The way that Travis Kelce wins the MVP in the Super Bowl is this, and only this, is that on a Patrick Mahomes throws an interception, Kelce chases down the guy that has the interception, punches the ball out from underneath, scoops it up, and runs into the end zone himself for a touchdown. And so Mahomes gets none of those stats.
Yes.
In that scenario, then maybe Kelce wins the MVP.
Yes.
And the analytics say that's unlikely.
Analytics do say that is unlikely. That's exactly. We have crunched the numbers back at NBC HQ.
We just got it. Right?
And that's,
Maybe Mahomes could commit a crime mid-game and be arrested.
That is
in that
true.
kind of range.
Well, an injury. Mahomes' injury in
Chad
game.
Henne comes in. Chad Henne and
I don't know. Henne might get that thing.
Henne did throw a touchdown pass to Travis Kelce.
That's right.
But yes, in a scenario in which Patrick Mahomes gets injured and the Chiefs win, Chad Henne's the MVP.
Yes.
If right. Come on.
No, Kelce wins the MVP in that scenario.
Chad Henne comes in and leads them to victory? Are you crazy? Of course it's Chad Henne.
Look, Julian Edelman got a Super Bowl MVP a couple of years ago in a low-scoring Super Bowl game. The thing is, we don't expect this one to be that way. So it could be that type of scenario, too.
Yep. No, I'm with you there. All right, Lawrence.
I suppose it depends on when Henny comes into the game.
Yeah, right.
Right, and what the score is. But if he comes in, if Mahomes gets injured in quarter one and they're down 7-0 or something like that, and Henny leads them to victory, Henny wins the MVP.
I have trouble saying
Henny, baby.
A bunch of dump offs to Kelsey, 2 touchdowns, couple touchdowns. I think it's Kelsey.
If Kelsey ends up scoring that way.
All right, Lawrence, who's going to have the longest completion, Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts?
I did not think I was getting into. By the way, just so you know, poor Pete, our producer Pete, is just like, wait a minute, are we literally arguing a Chad Henne MVP conversation right now?
Yeah, we did 3 minutes on Chad Henne MVP, so he's not going to take a snap.
Exactly. And by the way, and Steven's not producing today. Steven, our resident Jaguars fan, who actually loves Chad Henne.
Does. To a strange extent, actually.
Misses Chad Henne desperately in Jacksonville.
I grinded Chad Henne tape for hours before the show. I just want everyone to know.
It is true. You left last night early. We're like, where are you going? I got to grind.
I got to go watch the tape.
Got to grind some more Henne tape. It's like, where's Denny going? It's so weird.
The Henne tape. All right, Lawrence, who has the longest completion, Mahomes or Hurts? They got the same odds.
I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts on this one. I think they'll take more deep shots. The Eagles' defense, so they won't allow Patrick Mahomes to do that. They'll make him chop them up in the middle of the field. We saw them try to complete those passes against the Niners in the NFC Championship games. You mentioned it earlier about him being successful on the deep ball versus man coverage. So give me Jalen Hurts right there at the same odds.
Yep. What do you got, Denny?
Mahomes. It's simply because I think the Chiefs are one of 3 teams that pass no matter what. So if they get a lead, they pass. If they're behind, they pass. If it's neutral game script, they pass. I just think that there are so many scenarios where Mahomes can have a big game here.
I do too, but in terms of longest completion, I'm with Lawrence. My expectation here is that, especially with Darius Slay and James Bradbury, that they're going to say to the Chiefs, "You can dink and dunk us to death, but we're not going to let you. We're not going to let you uncork a 70-yard bomb on us." And so, but I do think that you could see A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith get loose for one deep, and that's the concern. It's like you think about the Chiefs. Okay, well, who could possibly have a 60-yard reception? The most likely guy on Kansas City is Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he's going to see either Bradbury or Slay. I don't know. It feels like I agree with 100% on the Chiefs' passing offense, but I do think Lawrence is right here in terms of. I think the better bet is Jalen Hurts in terms of who has the longest completion.
Yep. Got a good little segment here of Denny Carter saying one thing and then the other 3 people saying the opposite thing.
This is how you do it.
I skew Mahomes as well, keeping with the bit, just because I think he's going to have more pass attempts. And also I think one thing with Hurts is that with his shoulder, he had no touch on those deep balls to Brown and Smith against the Niners. So he'll probably look better, but that is another thing to be concerned about.
No.
All right, let's go,
to me, the argument with Mahomes is the passing volume and you're hoping for yards after the catch.
Yep.
Like he gets McKinnon or something like that, and that just up the right.
Yep. Right. Okay, Denny, let's go to you this time. Most receiving yards. Do you think it comes from the trio of Kelsey, Brown, Smith, or someone else? You're taking the field in that.
I mean, look, anytime I can mention Quez Watkins on this show, I'm going to do it. Okay, so I am going to say Quez Watkins maybe gets loose for a deep ball from the slot. And can be one of the guys who wins outside of this trio. It is tough to not take this trio, though. I do think that the Eagles receivers will be game script dependent, if you understand. Like the Eagles I don't think want to unleash against the Chiefs. I think they want to control the game. I think they want to make it kind of ugly. I mean, it was kind of ugly against the 49ers, honestly. It was lots of a very run-heavy game script. So I think that's what they want to do. I would take Quez Watkins at whatever crazy odds you can get here.
Look, Quez Watkins hasn't played a ton. I don't want to talk down Quez Watkins.
Tough show for Denny today.
I'm going to go with Kelsey. He's average. Kelsey's look. Here's the thing on Kelsey. He's averaged. During this playoff run, right? And in fact, over his last 8 playoff games, he's averaging over 104 receiving yards. I do think that, especially given the fact that Juju may be less than 100%, that Hardman's not going to be out there, and how you attack Philadelphia, which is in the middle of the field. We actually just had Mark Andrews on in the last segment who talked about the fact that he thinks that if they play zone, obviously going to be Kelsey. If they play man, Kelsey's a really good man beater. I don't think he has any one huge reception, but I think when we look up with it, you're going to be like, 8 for 115. That's going to be Kelsey's line, something like that.
Sure.
It's going to be a lot of,
Quez Watkins is plus 4,000. You can back that with me, Denny. Don't worry about
If it was the longest reception prop for Quez Watkins,
Sure.
I'll do that. But not no receiving yards. Hell no. Like, I ain't going to get cute on this one. I'm going with the trio.
You guys, you doubt Quez Watkins at your own peril. That's all I'm saying.
Producer Blake Friedman, actually, on the pre-call this morning, actually had a good prop of Quez Watkins to get exactly 0 receptions, which is plus 300,
Yes.
which I prefer to
I'll
the
take
40.
that. Yeah.
Because
He had 0 last week and only had one last game and only had 1 target.
Blake pointing out about the fact that since Goddard has been back, Watkins has been, basically a special teamer.
Yes, exactly. Denny's man Quez Watkins.
His one target was 60 yards downfield. I just want to put it out there.
That's true.
Those good old air yards.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to give out 2 longer shots on the board, and it's Kadarius Toney, who's plus 2,000, who is the most talented receiver on the Chiefs, and he might just be fine. He might just show up and be fine. And then also Juju Smith-Schuster is plus 1,400, who I think there's a reasonable chance he's the most targeted Chiefs receiver. And again, you don't like counting on health when you're backing guys at minus 150, but when you're backing guys at plus 1,400, you got some health variance in your favor where he might just look okay.
And the slot is obviously where you attack Philadelphia again, right?
And they scheme so many targets to Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney's been targeted on 40% of his routes since week 17, which is just an insane number. And I know I've said that on Twitter, and people say, "Oh, well, they scheme touches. They have a game plan for him." Well, that's what you do with good players. That's what happens with talented players who can make a lot happen after the catch. I do like Toney there.
Okay, last one, Lawrence, rushing yards.
He's no Quez Watkins, but
Wow, no, who is?
Right.
You're
Or
Quez
Chad
guy.
Henne, but
You've made your bed with Quez Watkins. Right. Lawrence, rushing yards leader for the game, is it Miles Sanders, who's minus 105, or is it the field?
I'm gonna go with the field, just because how the odds play. You saw Miles Sanders get the 2 touchdowns in the NFC Championship game, but Kenneth Gainwell is gaining on Miles Sanders.
Very good.
Boston Scott got in there a little bit, and if you look at it there, like Pacheco, he had a much bigger role in the AFC Championship. So just based on the odds, I'm gonna just take the juice on this one.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. Like, I'd probably pick Pacheco at plus 275. But it feels like if you're asking me Sanders or the field, there's so many different ways that the Eagles can run the ball. Obviously, Gainwell, Scott, and Hurts, of course, and that assumes that they're able to run the ball and that they're not quickly down. Which, again, there's a scenario in which, I don't know how likely it is, but there's a scenario in which the Chiefs come out and they're up 17-0 immediately. Like, there's a turnover or something.
Sure.
They score in their first possession, then there's a turnover, and all of a sudden, now they're down and they're not going to be able to run the way they want to.
I would love Pacheco there, but I think that CEH being active kind of throws a wrench in that. I'm not saying that they're going to shift back to CEH. I don't think that that's likely. But to have to split the backfield with McKinnon, with CEH, I think Pacheco's ceiling is a lot lower than I thought it would be, and so I guess I go Sanders there.
We talked about this in the first segment as well. I mean, CEH, the last 2 games he was active, he played 9 snaps total. I mean,
right. And obviously they don't like him. They don't want him to be anything close to the lead back.
And it's also, by the way, Pacheco was awesome last game. You know what I mean? It'd be one thing if they squeaked by Cincinnati, but they got nothing out of the run game. But down the stretch, McKinnon and Pacheco have been awesome.
I feel like we've done this before, though, with the Chiefs back. We've anointed, we anointed McKinnon, the guy. He's the guy, and then McKinnon became only a blocker for Mahomes, and Pacheco took over. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think Pacheco plus 275. I think there's a little meat on the bone there in terms of value. I think also Kenneth Gainwell, to Lawrence's point, at plus 1,400. Kenneth Gainwell, his rushing prop right now on BetMGM is 19.5 rushing yards. He's had 26 carries the past 2 games, and obviously those were very, very favorable in terms of game script. But he just looks explosive out there, and I think they're going to give him carries. So even if the 14-1 doesn't cash in terms of leading the entire game, I do think that he will get to 20 rushing yards.
I actually like what's his rushing receiving number. I think it's like 39.
We can have a look.
39.5.
Yeah, keep talking and I'll find out.
I just like, because there's different ways that they can use Kenneth Gainwell. They do run him, but they also like to use him in the passing game. I mean, Sanders is just not involved in the passing game at all. So
Gainwell's 11.5 receiving yards. So you add that up, it's going to be 30.5 rushing plus receiving.
I love the over on the Gainwell 30.5 rushing receiving.
He could probably get that just rushing.
Exactly. But they use him in a variety of ways, and so again, especially if Chris Jones wrecks some havoc here, and so you could see some dump-offs to Gainwell.
Yep, no, I like that. We're a Kenneth Gainwell show. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll hit some more news, talk Sean Payton and his orange tie, and then we'll close out with the best props from these guys, Lawrence Jackson and Denny Carter.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.